Eric Lopez here in Oklahoma City, site of the Big 12 championships, alongside Bryson Turner, who's back in Orlando. He's got his own big event he's going to be covering later this weekend. But this is going to be our Big 12 softball championship preview. UCF playing in their first Big 12 softball championship tournament ever. They will play Thursday night, 8:30 Eastern-ish, against Baylor from Oklahoma City, from the stadium that is formerly known as the Hall of Fame Stadium. They just got a new sponsor, Bryson, Devon Park. That's the same stadium where the College World Series is played every year, the mecca of softball. So Bryson's going to drill me with a lot of questions. He's ready to interrogate me. We're going to break down UCF. Some of the Big 12 awards came out. Some interesting choices for the UCF honoree. We'll break down the UCF Baylor game and what's at stake for UCF and much more on this Big 12 preview on blackandgoldbanneret.com, as well as on our YouTube channel that you're watching on Black and Gold Banneret. This will all be everywhere. Bryson, how you doing, Bryson?
I am doing quite all right. It's, we're getting to the point where we're at that last bang of the athletic year, where we have the end, we have the softball postseason, you have the spring, the winding down of the baseball regular season, and you have conference championships and NCAA tournaments for a bunch of other spring sports. So always nice to get to this point in the year, and I'm excited that you get to go to another conference softball championship for a second straight year.
Yeah, Black and Gold Banneret has been the only UCF media outlet that's been in person at the men's basketball championship with our friend Jake. Jake will be with me as well this week covering the Big 12 softball championships. He'll be writing the recaps of the UCF as long as they're in this tournament. So it's a lot of fun. And I would argue, Grayson, this is the signature event of the Big 12 women's sports. It's held at, let me ask you this, Bryson. Imagine if UCF football got a chance to play at the Rose Bowl in a regular season game, the same Rose Bowl where the most famous bowl game, that great pageantry and scenery was there. That would be a pretty big deal, would it not?
Do you mean the Rose Bowl game or the Rose Bowl stadium?
Just the Rose Bowl. Just get a chance to play in that beautiful stadium.
Okay, the stadium.
With all the coloring there. And, it could be a playoff game maybe. Hey, down the road. Hey, the way they're adding players. That would be a pretty big deal, right?
Oh, absolutely.
This is what UCF is about to do on Thursday night. They're going to be playing at the same stadium that every player, every coach wants to coach and play in the same stadium where every year the season will end with the Women's College World Series. In this case, being the Big 12 championship, being kind of the precursor, if you will. So I think it's a pretty historical moment for this program. It's a historical moment for UCF. Women's soccer doesn't have that. I think they played in somewhere in Texas, Round Rock, Texas. Women's basketball kind of shares the Kansas City with the men's side. So, but this is the signature stadium for softball, and that's what kind of makes it unique. As we're, obviously I'm doing this from the hotel, but I'm going to be spending the whole week at the stadium and doing shows there, in the circle shows from there. But it's exciting, and we'll see how UCF handles that hoopla as they take on Baylor on the last game of the Thursday night quarterfinals, the late night primetime slot there, Bryson Turner.
Yeah, that's definitely a really good game for them to be in. I think the only downside of it is just because of how competitive the Big 12 conference is. It is, even if they win today against Baylor, they're most likely going to be faced with 1 seed Texas.
Well, the brackets are Texas is the 1 seed. They won the regular season title. They will play the winner of Texas State, Iowa State, which will be played Wednesday night, 8-9 game. That's the playing game on Wednesday night. Then you got the 2 seed is Oklahoma. They will be playing the winner of Kansas and Houston. Houston is a 7-10 game. There's the bracket for those that are watching. That will be the other Wednesday night game. That'll be on early Thursday. They're the early session. Oklahoma State, BYU, 11 a.m. Central, 12 Eastern, with Oklahoma. And, of course, Oklahoma State playing BYU in a 3-6 game. And then UCF Baylor, is the 8:30, what is it, Eastern time there? So I'm on Central, Bryson, so you have to keep track of all the time zones. But that's where we're at with the schedule there, the Big 12 on Thursday. It was big for UCF to get a top 6 seed, avoid the playing game on Wednesday. They get the 5 seed, which is what the coaches predicted them to finish before the season. So they'll take on a Baylor team that they played a few weeks ago in Waco, lost a 2-1 game, 2-1-0 games, pitchers duels delight. So it's interesting to see these two teams meet again in a different environment in Oklahoma City come Thursday night. So that's the Big 12 thing. It's a single elimination tournament. You mentioned it. The winner of UCF Baylor will play likely Texas. You never know, but probably Texas. That'll be on that side of the semifinal late Friday night. The championship game is in prime time on Saturday night on ESPN2, Bryson. All right. Where do you want to begin? You go ahead. Start asking questions here, and I'll answer the best I can.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and start with the most breaking news of the day, which is the UCF softball awards have come out. And taking a look, Sarah Willis managed to get herself into the All Big 12 first team along the likes of many from the top teams of Oklahoma, Texas, and Oklahoma State. The Big 12 second team, we have Shannon Doherty and Chloe Evans. They managed to get onto that one. And then Big 12 freshman team, both Sierra Humphreys and Samantha Ray were able to make their way on those teams. Eric, what are your thoughts on these particular nights getting honored by the conference?
Well, first of all, impressive for all of them to get honored, especially Willis. First team Big 12, Bryson. That'll be the trivia question now for eternity. Who is the first UCF softball player to be first team All Big 12? The answer is Sarah Willis. Let me ask you this. Is she the first? I'm trying to remember. How many UCF athletes have made first team All Big 12 this year in general across the sports landscape? I'm trying to remember now. I know you have that list probably in the back of your mind, but fantastic for her. She was pitching magnificent, has hit the ball pretty well during the season. Second team, Shannon Doherty's had a great conference season very quietly, and I think you saw that rewarded by the awards there. Second team, and then Chloe Evans leading them in runs batted in and extra base hits. Played great right field defensively, Bryson. I think played a factor in her getting the second team. And then Sierra Humphreys and Samantha Ray, rightfully so, on the all-rookie team, freshman team there, part of that heralded freshman class. Both are going to be integral parts of this program you hope for down the road and moving forward. So I'm pleased with it. I think I'm okay with it. Maybe you can make a case for another player or two on the team. But look, this is the Big 12. This ain't the American. There's a ton of talent. But it shows, Bryson, that even with the amount of talent in Big 12, UCF has talent to compete in the Big 12. And I'm just happy that they were recognized as many as they had.
For perspective, one Big 12 athlete, a UCF athlete that was able to make a Big 12 first team in this debut season athletically, we have on football. I managed to find that NFL draft pick Javon Baker and Tremont Morris Brash both got first team selections in football in their first year. Looking, by the way, at the softball All Big 12 first team, fellow pitchers that were able to get selected: Kelly Maxwell of Oklahoma, Lexi Kilfoyle of Oklahoma State. Kilfoyle of Oklahoma State, Satali Gutierrez, a sophomore from Texas, and Tegan Kavan, a freshman from Texas. So those are the pitchers that Sarah Willis has the company of.
That's good company, by the way. Kilfoyle is the Big 12 Pitcher of the Year award winner from that.
Unanimously selected at that.
Yeah, and rightfully so. She was fantastic. I actually picked her to win the award before the year, so I'm pretty proud of that. But that's good company for Willis to take, and rightfully so. And remember, Bryson, we were there against Oklahoma a few weeks back where she gave up just 2 hits. First pitcher to give 7 innings, give up just 2 hits against Oklahoma in 2 years. So I think everybody kind of knows what they had to deal with against Sarah Willis. I think that's rightfully so on that. So are those the only athletes to get first team all conference with the football players? Did Peterson not make it for women's? Was she first or second team?
Peterson, I believe, was second team.
So that's good company for Sarah Willis to join just Javon Baker and Brad.
Those are the ones I know of off the top of my head at the
As of now, obviously, there's still some sports to go moving forward. But that's impressive to make that list, and very pleased with overall Of course, Reese Atwood was the national player, the Big 12 Player of the Year for Texas. Mike White, the Texas head coach, was the Coach of the Year, and then Kinsey Hansen, the Oklahoma catcher, was the Defensive Player of the Year. Those were the Big 12 awards that were handed out. Who won Rookie and Freshman of the Year? Do you have that in front of you there, Bryson?
Freshman of the year was Kavan from Texas.
Wow. Okay.
She
Yeah.
she she was selected all first team. In fact, when looking at all first team, there are only two freshmen that made all Big 12 first team this year, which were Carly Godwin from Oklahoma State
Yeah.
as well as Kavan.
Yeah. Godwin and Kavan. I was curious. That one could have gone either way for Freshman of the Year for the Big 12. So that makes a ton of sense. But it's good company to keep with there for UCF there. But obviously they're focusing on playing for Baylor on Thursday nights.
Well, I think
That's going to be key there.
Well, I think another big headline from here is the fact that both CeCe Humphreys and Samantha Ray managed to get selected to the All Big 12 freshman team. I mean, obviously, of course, we have Kavan and Godwin, but to have both of these athletes amongst the likes of these freshman talents on this team, I think could bode quite well for the future of this program in the conference, even sans Texas and Oklahoma.
Yeah, no doubt. As I mentioned earlier, that's part of that heralded freshman class. Humphreys has been magnificent at third base and has hit. Ray's played center, has played seconds, played left. Good slap hitter. So yeah, no doubt. Totally agree.
Now, turning to Baylor to see how they fared in this. By the way, only two Baylor players were actually honored in the in these honors right here. Here you have Shalon Govan, a junior
Jalen Govin, yeah.
infielder for managed to
Base,
get selected by all Big 12 first team. And then you have Aaliyah Binford, who is a pitcher, a dual threat player, pitcher and infielder, making all Big 12 second team. Oh, there's another one. Emily Hott, a senior utility player, also selected for all Big 12 second team. So 3 Baylor Bears selected to all Big 12 conference selections. What should we expect out of them in this series?
Well, Binford is the one who shut out UCF both games in Waco a few weeks ago. So Leah Binford, that doesn't surprise me one bit. Or excuse me, gave up 1 run in the 2 wins she got. So that two-way player is very athletic infielder. Govan was the one who hit the go-ahead home run off Willis in the first game of that series. She's an explosive bat there. So those are the 2 best players for Baylor. Hott's had a nice year. They've had some injuries. They got off to an incredible start in February, where I thought they were a top 10 team in the country, poised to host and be a World Series contender. They had some issues. Their center fielder was suspended basically for the year, ran into some off-field issues. They had some injuries to one of their other co-aces on the pitching staff. She's missed the whole year basically since February. So they had to deal with a lot of injuries. They hit a middle-of-the-year slump. But ironically, they found themselves against UCF, and they've been a different team since that UCF series, Baylor, winning 9 out of 10. So they're experienced group. They know what it takes to win games, and they've been here before. So that it's a team that's normally, when they're playing well, they go timely hitting, good pitching, good defense. They're not going to be a team that overpower you explosive offenses like Oklahoma State, Texas, but they're very sound, very well coached with Glenn Moore as head coach. They will be an NCAA tournament team. They're in the 20s in the RPI, so it's not an easy game for UCF, but none are in the Big 12. But the good news for UCF is they get another crack at them, and it's a great opportunity, Bryson, to pick up a quad 1 win, which has been lacking for UCF this year, is in that top 25 RPI wins. And to me, that's significant. If they can win this game, Bryson, I think it pretty much secures them an NCAA tournament bid. UCF, as we record this, has a 38 RPI, which is not bad, not great. It's kind of okay. It's good. It would be good. I think it would be good enough today to make the NCAA tournament, probably as a 3 seed in Gainesville or the Tallahassee Regional, assuming Florida State hosts. But if you can beat Baylor, that probably is going to bump you up into the low to mid 30s RPI. And even if you were to lose in the semis to Texas, for example, you're not going to get hurt by that. You're not going to get hurt if you lose to Baylor either. But I just think that would be a nice punch to get yourself secure into the tournament. You lose the Baylor game, now you got to go scoreboard watching. Now you got to see what other results happen and how everything plays out. That's not a position you want to be in for the remainder of the week. So it's an important game for UCF from that standpoint. They can make their lives a lot easier for the rest of the week if they can win this game, but it won't be easy because Baylor is playing their best softball really since February.
Oh yeah, for perspective, Baylor is ranked number 18 in the RPI,
Yeah,
and they managed to pick up 5 quad one wins right
really
there.
good team. They are rightfully so the fourth seed. They've earned that. And again, UCF's going to have some situational hitting against Baylor's pitching. They didn't get any of that in Waco. We'll see if they do that better in Oklahoma City this weekend.
So who should we expect to see in the circle for Baylor? Do you think they're going to go with Binford early, or do you think we could see somebody else?
That's a great question. They have two arms I think they'll pick from. It's either going to be Binford or Crandall. Both got victories against UCF. Both pitched well against UCF. So if you're Glenn Moore, you've got two good options. I could see him starting Binford. That's his ace. I could also see him starting Crandall and bringing Binford in relief. I could also see him doing that and try to save one for the semifinal. So it's a good question. I'm going to assume he goes Binford, but I wouldn't be surprised either way with if he goes with her or Crandall.
Yeah, we also, of course, remiss to mention Govan. We talked about her. She managed to get selected to All Big 12 for a region. She leads the Big 12 in on base percentage. I mean, you look at this, Eric. She has a 593 on base percentage this year. The next person behind her, BYU's Aliana Agbayani, 539. That's the difference between first and second in on base percentage leaders for Baylor. How deadly is Govan been at the plate this season? And what do you think that this pitching staff is going to have to do, whoever is pitching, whether it's Sarah or otherwise, to pitch or get around her?
Well, pitch around her because she's by far the most dangerous hitter on the lineup. The key is to keep the other hitters around her off the base pads. If you keep them off the base pads, then you could be you could pitch around Govan and not have her beat you. That's the key. She could beat you with one swing of the bat. She's explosive. She's dynamic. She's one of the best hitters in the country. And so the last thing you want to do is have runners on base with her because she usually delivers. That's how Baylor gets most of their runs. They'll manufacture runs elsewhere, but she's their big bat in the lineup. So I think you got to pitch around her, preferably with nobody on base, and don't let her beat you like she did in the first game in Waco, where she hit that home run in the sixth inning in a 1-1 tie game. That was the difference. So I would you always identify a player in the lineup. Don't let this player beat you. And I think she is clearly that for Baylor.
When you look at back at the Baylor regular season series, I mean, I think honestly the Baylor series is like a microcosm for this entire season, where they just come oh so close, but are not able, but come up just short. We talked about the number of 1-1 losses. We've talked about the number of 1-1 losses this team has had. 3 of them all came in this series. All 3 regular season games these two teams played had a 1-run margin of victory for the Bears. When you look back at that regular season series, what do you think is the biggest thing UCF needs to do different in order to win?
Hit the ball and hit and not hit it at people. Baylor played good defense. That's the other thing. Baylor has good range. Took away robbed UCF of some good hits, but they got to do better situational hitting. That's all. It manufactures some runs. They're not an easy team to score on. Just jump on them, and I think that's the key. And don't stick with the game plan. Don't go deviate from it. I thought some of the players at times got frustrated as that weekend went on. Remember, that was a single game Friday. They got washed out Saturday, had to play a doubleheader on Sunday. And I thought they just got frustrated as that tournament series went on with and the at-bats kind of suffered as a result. So get quality at-bats, make them work, and just get off to a good start, I think, is going to be the key. And I think UCF has found some answers since then. They hit the ball well against Oklahoma. They hit the ball well against Iowa State game 2 and 3, but they got to put it together consistently. They sometimes get off to slow starts, and that's not an easy recipe. That's not a good recipe in postseason to try to win games, is to fall behind in an early start. So get off to a good start, play from the lead, and go from there. And I think you feel good about your pitching staff against them. Can you get off to a good start and scratch out a couple runs early would be huge for this team, because they're a different team when they're playing from the lead than from behind.
How much would you say this last Iowa State series in Ames has helped kind of propel them into this? Because they really had to bounce back from an I would honestly say not very good game one
Yeah, that's an understatement.
to
Yeah,
then
things
win the
went
series.
south. It was cold. That probably didn't help them. But yeah, that was not a good performance on Friday. But they rebounded and salvaged the series, won the series. Iowa State's a tough place to play. I don't know why, but Oklahoma State lost twice there this year at Iowa State, to give you an idea. So that's the difference between the Big 12 and the American, Bryson. An Iowa State team that's like the 9 seed, okay, the ninth place team is capable of beating anybody in the conference. They beat Oklahoma State twice this year. That doesn't happen in the American. So that's the difference. One of the things that we've learned in the Big 12 in all the sports, but especially in softball, even the teams at the bottom, to me, can bite you at any moment. And I think that was a case in point on Friday night when Iowa State took it to UCF. But give UCF credit. They bounced right back on Saturday. It could have been that series could have easily gotten away from them, but they crushed Iowa State, jumped on them, and ruled them right back on that Saturday game. And then on Sunday, when you had the pitchers duel, the two senior captains, if you will, for many years, Shannon Doherty, Jada Cody, each hits two-run home runs to give UCF that 4-0 victory with Sarah Willis pitching the shutout. So they got the series win to keep them in the tournament right now, in my opinion. I have in the tournament, but you mentioned the Baylor RPI. It is so huge. That's the one bugaboo this year. They haven't gotten that top 25 RPI win. They've been close. It's now or never, right? It's either now or never. Get this top 25 RPI win now, and your life will be a lot easier this week when it comes to Selection Sunday. You don't win this game, then you're gonna have stress out between now and the selection show on Sunday night.
So looking at Baylor on the mound, you talked about how they're going to go with either Binford or Crandall, but do you think that there is any chance at all that we would see anybody else from these two? I mean, Binford leads the Big 12 in strikeouts by a pretty wide margin, 132. Yeah. The second place is Kilfoyle with 114, the unanimous pitcher of the year, by the way.
I'm glad, and I'm glad you brought that up, because again, that's the difference in a league like the Big 12. Binford is a tremendous pitcher. Any other year she'd be right in the mix for Big 12 Pitcher of the Year or first team all conference unanimous, etc. But that tells you the depth of the Big 12. When you have a Tegan Cavan, you got Gutierrez at Texas, you got Maxwell at Oklahoma. We haven't even talked about a Kirsten Deal of Oklahoma. You got Willis, you've got Binford. I mean, there's just a ton of talented arms in the league. And as a result, your offense ain't going to look as good on a consistent basis. And I think that's one of the things we've learned in the Big 12, Bryson, is every game is a battle. And that's why you're not going to win games 10-8 for the most part if you have with all the good pitching. You're going to probably have to win a 3-1, 42 type games to be successful here in the postseason.
Crandall is no slouch either, though. She actually has 101 strikeouts on the year. For perspective, Sarah Willis is actually right behind her at 99. So, Baylor's number 2 is basically is right where Willis is in this area. I almost feel like that from a pitching perspective, Baylor is a pitching staff. It's the type of staff that maybe UCF was looking to try to build in the Big 12 this year. This year is like Sarah Willis, the obvious ace, but you definitely need that number 2. I mean, you did need that number 2 in the American as well, but I think that Baylor has kind of shown that you can make the two main starters in the Big 12 work if they're like the best at what they do, which is what Binford and Crandall have kind of shown in this case here. When you look at at UCF's pitching staff, what do you think they're going to need to do for this Big 12 championship? Like, do you throw Willis now at Baylor and to potentially to the detriment against Texas? Does Sarah, as she has done in conference tournaments before, just pitch straight through the whole thing, or do we see Caitlin Felton or Sona Halajian or Justman or?
Well, that's the big question, right? And I think there's not a real clear answer, because just when for example, the Oklahoma series, Willis pitched the middle game instead of the first game. So there's a couple ways you could do this. You could have Willis start the Thursday game. You bring in Felton to start the second game. and have a bunch of arms ready to go behind her. If she pitches well, which she has, then you let her go as long as you can. If not, you have other arms and go by committee. You could do that because that would set you up for Willis maybe to come in relief on the semifinal if you got there, or definitely start again in the championship game. So it's how do you want to play it? The other way to do, I would assume Willis goes. It doesn't mean it's a lot.
I'm looking through the rest of the Big 12 bracket, by the way, just to kind of get a bit of lay of the land. Actually, yeah, I do want to go ahead and ask you this: who do you think is going to make the Big 12 championship here?
So it's good. I think Oklahoma will be in the Big 12 title game. Although their bracket with potentially Oklahoma State, you could have Bedlam 4. That's the big rivalry in the semifinals. And I'm getting messages here, but I would say Oklahoma and Oklahoma State on one side of the bracket in the semis. I think I'm going to go Oklahoma, but that's going to be the thriller. And then I think everybody's going to pick Texas to get there. But I'm curious how Texas handles being the favorite, being the Big 12 champion. Oklahoma won 11 straight regular season titles in the Big 12 prior to this year. And I'm curious to see if the winner of UCF Baylor maybe puts a scare into Texas. Remember, UCF pitched well against Texas when they played earlier this year. So if you want to go chalk, I think it's Texas, Oklahoma. I think that's what a lot of people assume. But I think Oklahoma State is a dark horse, as a 3, if you call it that. And I think the winner of UCF Baylor could be a dark horse because they all have pitching that can win you games at this time of year. And I think that the winner of UCF Baylor playing Texas will be an interesting game.
So if you're a UCF fan, like because Texas is going to be playing the winner of the play-in game between Iowa State and Texas Tech, that's listed for 7 Central tonight. So, or 7:30 Central tonight. If you're a UCF fan, who are you rooting for in that game to play against the Longhorns if we want to, for some reason, see a Longhorn see the Longhorns get upset?
Well, I would take Iowa State. They're a little more scrappier. Texas Tech doesn't have the pitching to slow down Texas. Texas scored 23 runs in one of the victories against Texas Tech last weekend in Lubbock. So I would probably say Iowa State, but Texas will be an overwhelming favorite either way.
You mentioned dark horses there. So UCF, Baylor, and then with BYU, Oklahoma State as well. Whoever wins that will be the dark horses.
Well, BYU is a team to watch out. They've beaten both Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. Remember, former Knight Maddie Bejarano is part of that team. That's going to be the first game on Thursday. Does Oklahoma State have a bedlam hangover after winning the series in Norman against Oklahoma? I'm very interested to see that. BYU could hit as well as anybody. So that's a dangerous game for Oklahoma State. Don't chalk up Oklahoma State right away into the semis. But I do think with Kilfoyle and company, Bedlam 4 is going to be, if that happens, will be enormous, Bryson. It'll be a packed house for that game in the Big 12 title game.
You mentioned Maddie Bejarano. She is an overwhelming leader in the Big 12 in sacrifice bunts, 21 on the season. Second place, Megan Bloodworth of Oklahoma State. She has 8. That's the margin between them. And then she's also one of the top in the conference. She has 5 sacrifice flies, which is tied for second, and then 40 walks, which is third in the conference right there. I mean, Maddie Bejarano is either getting on base herself or getting runs across or getting runners forward in any way she's been able to. And yeah, BYU, I will admit, looking through it, is someone to watch. It's quite interesting to look at this Big 12 softball league. I mean, obviously, when you think about it being the best in the league, you see Oklahoma and Texas and Oklahoma State, who I think at one point were like the top 3 teams in the nation, are all in the top 5 at some point or another.
I think they're top 5 right now. They're actually, depending on which poll you look at, Texas is number 1. Oklahoma State is either 2 or 3, and then Oklahoma is 4. So you got 3 teams in the top 5, 3 teams that are legitimate World Series contenders, 3 teams that will be top 8 national seeds, I think, come Selection Sunday, and 3 teams that can really are legitimate candidates for the national championship. There is no UCF sport, any sport, Bryson, that could say they have played that type of schedule in the conference. Not even men's hoops, as great as men's basketball is. They did not even have a team get to the Elite Eight this year. Kansas obviously was shorthanded, had some injuries. This is as stacked as it gets, and it won't be this vicious of a league next year because you lose Oklahoma and Texas next year, but it's still going to be super strong with Arizona coming in, that great traditional power. Arizona State coming in, Utah, who was in the World Series last year, coming in. It's still going to be, to me, the number 2 conference in the sport, and it's something I think UCF will be better off for going through this to get used to what the grind is like on a week-to-week basis in a league like the Big 12.
So who should we expect on UCF? Like who could you see stepping up in in this type of environment? Because I mean, we've seen, we talked about Sarah Willis. I think that her importance to this, I mean, she's the only Knight to get Big 12 first team, I think kind of says all there needs to be said on that. But you talked about hitting, and you got to hit against Baylor in order to win. So who would you say is a good candidate on the Knights to step up in this environment offensively?
Curious about Kennedy Searcy and what her availability is. Can she start? Can she play? Her bat, she was having a great year before all the injuries hit. I'm curious to see what her role is in this Big 12 tournament. I'm curious to see how Jada Cody does. Didn't make Big 12. Does that light a little extra juice there? Usually, do you feel snubbed? We'll see how she handles all that. I think Shannon Doherty, Chloe Evans. I mean, those are the key players to set the tone. And I think Sona. Notice she's been hitting at the top of the order, has good power. I think those are the hitters. If they hit well, I think they'll be fine offensively. If they struggle, then the offense will struggle. I think that's the key. Ashley Griffin's another one that's had a very good year as well. But what's Kennedy's role? Jada Cody, Chloe Evans, Shannon Doherty. That's going to be the key for this offense. And having people get on base to set them up to drive in some runs, I think is the key.
What's the difference between the Plex and the Hall of Fame Stadium, Devon Park? That's what its name is now. In terms of just dimensions, because obviously sometimes in baseball, of course, hitting a home run in one stadium can be a bit different from hitting one in a different stadium. So how different is hitting a home run in Devon Park as opposed to the Plex? Because you mentioned Sona hitting for power.
Well, first of all, there's about 10,000 seats potentially in the stadium. I don't know if it'll be that packed for the Big 12 title. It's usually saved for the World Series, so they'll probably pack about 5,000. Wouldn't we like to have 5,000 seats, or maybe 1,000 seats? Maybe 2,000 seats we would settle for, Bryson, at the Plex, wouldn't we? So that's one thing. But as far as the dimensions are the same. It's just where's the wind blowing? I don't think it's really a hitter's park or a pitcher's park. There's certain areas that's deep, center field's deep, but it's not too drastically different from the Plex. It's maybe a little bit more hittable here than it is at the Plex, maybe some would argue, but the wind's not swirling as much here as it does at the Plex in when it blows in. So we'll see. It all depends on the weather, though. It's Oklahoma City. Things could change in a minute. So that's why sometimes the stadium plays differently, but also the humidity will play a factor in that. The Baylor game, I don't expect it to be a huge crowd because the Texas and Oklahoma State fans, most of them will be gone. So that'll be an interesting environment, but we'll see. We'll see how it plays out, what the weather like. Because sometimes there's some gust winds that pop in there during that stadium, and is it blowing out or blowing in could dictate how the stadium plays.
Interesting. Have you gotten a chance to see the team at all since you've been in Oklahoma State?
Yeah, I got to see them when they landed, and I know they were practicing Wednesday at the stadium, Bryson, where the players from the 2022 team actually played in the Super Regional, the old Oklahoma Stadium. You're in good shape when you have not one, but two softball stadiums currently, and that's what Oklahoma has. They have the new Love Field, and they have the old Heinz Field Stadium. That's the stadium where UCF played in the Super Regionals against Oklahoma in 2022, and Oklahoma won. UCF is practicing there today and Wednesday as they get set for the matchup. Some of the teams, that's the way they do it in the Big 12 championships. You don't actually practice at the Hall of Fame Stadium. You practice at other venues around the area. It's very interesting, unique in that regard. So that they've gotten a couple of practices in, And from what I understand, they'll probably check out one of the games here on Wednesday night. And remember, they're the late game on Thursday, so they got to wait a while. Late Thursday, it's not like they get to play right away. They got to wait a while. But the good news is, Bryson, as you know, UCF's accustomed to that because they play a lot of night games during the year, especially at home. So I think they will be fine from that regard.
What do you think? What about as far as the vibe you've seen from this team?
I think it's loose. It's a new season, right? It's postseason, 0-0. I think you want to play loose. You want to play your best. Let it all out there. You don't want to play tight. There's no reason to play tight. And I think there's a confidence. You're coming off a series win. I think they're feeling pretty good. I think they're excited to be here. They've been here before. Keep in mind, they played earlier this year at Oklahoma State, and the team actually visited the stadium I believe the day before their first game against Oklahoma State. So they're familiar with the area. They're familiar with the routine. I believe this is the third time, actually, they've been to Oklahoma City in the last year, because last year they played at Oklahoma State in a tournament. So they're actually accustomed to this, and I think that will help them be ready for this game on Thursday night. I think they're excited to get on the field and play at their best and try to maybe get some revenge on Baylor.
How much would you say this game it means to this team for the rest of this for as far as just this whole season? Because I mean, we've talked about this over the course of the season, and I'm sure the fans have as well, where the struggles that this team has kind of endured over the course of this season. Even though, by all intents and purposes, this team is probably just as good, if not better, than it's been in years before. It's just that it's in it's in the best softball conference in the sport. If you put the UCF football team into the SEC, they could still be as good as they were in 2017 or 2018, and they'd still be losing a few games.
Sure, no doubt. So I would say this. It's an important game, as I mentioned earlier. Baylor's a top 20 RPI team. UCF has not gotten a quad one win. If you get this win against Baylor, your RPI is going to be probably mid to low 30s. I would think that's good enough to make the tournament, considering the other wins you have. You have a win over Liberty, who won the CUSA tournament, conference, FAU, who's won the American Conference regular season title. You have 2 wins against Texas Tech, who right now would be an NCAA tournament team. You have a couple wins against Kansas in the top 50 RPI. You have 3 wins against BYU, who's 51 in the RPI. So those are good resume wins, but you want that signature win there against Baylor to put you over the hump. You lose the game, it's going to be a long 3 days to wait till Selection Sunday to see if your name gets called or not. Then you're going to have to depend on what happens elsewhere. And you hope it's kind of chalky and not too many crazy upsets and bid stealing happens elsewhere. So it's important, very, very important game from that standpoint. You make your track to the tournament is a lot easier if you win this game versus if you don't.
You're, of course, the premier softball bracketologist out there. I mean, that's one of the reasons why D1 Softball spotted your talents right there. So when you look at UCF, where do you should UCF be at all? Fans be a bit nervous? Do you think if bid stealing does happen, does that put UCF on the bubble, or if they are they a bubble team already?
I mean, when you're at large, you're always in a bubble. And I would say UCF, if they lose this game, they become a bubble team. Again, 38 RPI. If you lose this game, you're probably going to stay around that number, maybe drop a spot or two. So you want to avoid that. So, we'll see what happens. Gainesville and Tallahassee, does Florida State have a good week and secure a hosting spot, or do they not host? That could affect UCF potentially because of the 400-mile radius rule, which I don't like. If FAU wins the automatic bid, or if that could come down between them and, they might take UCF spot in Gainesville because Florida Atlantic can only bus to Gainesville. If FAU does not win the automatic bid, might come down to UCF and FAU for one spot in Gainesville. Who knows? The way to avoid that is to win a game or two here in the Big 12 championship. And then if you do that, you're comfortably in.
Where would you say is the best case for a regional for UCF if they go?
You just get in. I don't buy into this is one regional better than the other. The reality is 95% if they're in the tournament, they're going to be in Gainesville or Tallahassee because of the 400-mile radius rule. So either one is not going to be easy, but they're capable. They have the arms to go deep. Florida State's got some questions pitching. Florida's young in pitching wise. So those are winnable regionals, but they're not easy. But those are the two spots where I would look at Selection Sunday where UCF will probably end up if they're in the regional. If they're in Tallahassee, they're probably going to play an SEC team. The SEC team will probably be a 2 seed, somebody like Auburn, maybe a Mississippi State, somebody like that. If they're in Gainesville, that gets a little murkier. If maybe UCF gets bumped to a 2 seed and plays FAU, maybe UCF plays somebody from the Pac-12, maybe they play a Virginia Tech from the ACC. You just don't know what the path would be in Gainesville. But I think those are your two regionals where UCF would end up if they're in.
Well, this is going to be an important week to determine that in Oklahoma City. You're going to be on hand with for D1 softball. How has it been? How has it been for you to see this place? I mean, as long as I've known you, you've been like softball has been your baby, and now you not only does this team get to see the kind of the mecca of college softball, but now you do as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as we record this, I'll be headed over to the stadium to cover the Wednesday night games. I'll be doing live shows from there and coverage. So, yeah, I mean, I was at the World Series in 2018, covering it for a different organization at the time. That was a blast. And now this time I get to be part of history, calling this first Big 12 championship that UCF's in. A Big 12 tournament, by the way, unlike any other Big 12 tournament we will ever see. This will be the only Big 12 tournament that will have Oklahoma, Texas, UCF, in the same conference. This is Oklahoma and Texas's last Big 12 tournament, their swan song. This is UCF's first. So next year, this league will look completely different. So from that standpoint, it's historic. And I like documenting history, not just from a UCF standpoint, but the fact that this Oklahoma, which has dominated this conference, leaving one more time is unique. To see Texas in their final Big 12. So there's a lot of documental, historical things that will take place this week, and I'm excited to witness it and document it in person.
Any final thoughts for UCF fans on this historic Big 12 tournament?
Yeah, so the games will be on ESPN Plus, just like you always have throughout the season. I will not be on those broadcasts, so don't freak out. They have their own crews there. I will have hopefully with the press box that I will have set up to do an audio broadcast for the UCF games. So that'll be fun. But
where can we find those audio broadcasts?
Twitch. It'll be on. I'll put it up on the Twitter and all that stuff. The links there, but some of you may be familiar with it. But hopefully that once I do all the testing and everything from the press box, that'll be a green light there. And then obviously the championship game will be on ESPN too. But all the games can be watched on ESPN Plus. So we certainly encourage you to watch that. I think it's historic. It'll be fun. UCF playing in Oklahoma City, playing in that stadium for the first time ever. That's a cool event, and hopefully they have a good week and have a good successful week and put themselves in a great spot to make a fourth straight NCAA tournament, which would be the first time ever that this program has made 4 straight NCAA tournaments. So that would be a cool achievement, cool way for the seniors that have been here a while to go out that way. But got to take care of business against a really good Baylor game, which is the marquee game, arguably. It's the marquee game of the Thursday night slate in the Big 12 championship. So get some caffeine, Bryson. It could be a late night game, but it should be a lot of fun.
Yes, that is very true, because it being the last game, it is subject to all the delays that could potentially pile up from the previous game. You are right about that. So that is our preview of a historic Big 12 softball tournament. I think historic is really kind of the name of the game this week. So I'm excited that you get to be there for it, and same for this UCF softball program as they try to get their first win against the Baylor Bears and get that all-important quad 1 win. Best of luck in Oklahoma City, Eric, and thank you for watching this softball preview. Be sure to subscribe to the Black and Gold Banneret YouTube channel for more content, whether it's like this, our Night Shift podcast, or just post-game content for all UCF sports as this spring slate continues to wind down. I am Bryson Turner. Eric Lopez is out there in Oklahoma City. Have a good rest of your day. Go Knights and charge on.